guys. Hey, Flower. You bet you're here again. Hey, Golden Girl. Hey, Bree. Hey, Black Beauty. Hey, guys. I'm waiting for the cast to come on in. I think they sleep and they didn't think I was going to come on. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to open up a package here. You know, Amazon delivers on a weekend on Sunday. And I just got my package delivered. Hey, Shannon. How you guys doing? We're on a reenactment day, what day are we on? We're on day, I forgot what day we're on. I forgot what day we are on. Day 26. Yeah, that's the day we're on. I got a little gadget to charge up my my stuff so I don't have to keep it up going again. Got all my stuff to be charged to be able to charge it. And like a little charging gadget. Where the folks at this today? Anybody taking a time coming in today? I had a whole bunch of people on this morning. Where you guys at? Where are you guys at? Oh my God, these flies! It's always some sort of bug. We had the door open, right? And these freaking flies came into the inside the house. They suck, man. They suck. I got all these little gadgets here. I charge up my phone and stuff. Oh, Miss Geddes is here. Hey. Ah! Hey. How you doing?
I'm good.
I'm good. We miss you. We miss. Oh, she jumped out. She hit something, y'all. She jumped out. Whew, these bugs, man. Flies. If it ain't the ants, it's the flies. Good morning, Liv. This morning live. I'm so sorry. That's the way I am. I'm like a crybaby sometimes. So I just wanted to express to you guys how passionate I am about this this fight. And it's not. Here she go again. Hey.
Hello. Sorry, I'm here. Thank you. God.
Welcome back, darling. How are you today?
You. I'm good, thank you. Are you okay?
I'm good, Candy. You know me. You know the way I am, Candy.
You're always good. Bless you. Always.
I'm always a little crybaby. But
no, you're not. Don't be daft. It's a lot of work you do, and it's going to happen, isn't it? It's bound to happen. It's just human, so you're fine.
Yeah. That young lady right there keep messing with me. That you digging me? She's telling me to get the exterminator.
Oh, wow.
Because I thought become mechanic. Everybody's coming in. We got a couple of more people coming in.
Hey. What's good?
That's good. We had to hold it down last night. All y'all was missing. I missed my cast. Okay, I'm waiting for 2 more people. I got a new person. Let's see if she gets in here. And when she gets in here, we'll be ready to rock and roll. Let me see if she's coming. Hold on a second, because I did send her the same text I send you guys. I send it to her.
How's everybody Labor Day weekend going?
Good. Can't complain. All right. And you know what? I'm going to put the link in the chat because some people may not be able to get it from the thing here. I'm just going to put it in the chat. All right. They might be in the chat and they don't know how to get in from the text message I send them. Because sometimes it's confusing. And we're reading the 26. Everybody has the 26, right?
I'm going to check my email now.
Check your email.
I'm checking it now. Okay, I got it.
You got it? Okay. You got it, Candy? Candy, you got it?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
got it in front of me. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right, guys. Y'all ready? Ready to rock and roll? We're just gonna have to play all the other parts until somebody comes in, because I don't want to hold anybody up, because we do have to update with Dottie coming up after this, so I don't want to hold anybody up.
I thought she was done updating.
No, she said she's got a recap or something like that. She said for some things she might have left out. She's gonna recap the whole week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't want to hold her up. I'm gonna go ahead and put this up here so people could see the screen and follow along.
Hi, Daddy Lolo.
Hello.
How are you? You
I'm
good?
blessed by the best.
Yeah. Good. Nice to work with you again.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, right. I'll turn my mic off.
All right, are you guys ready? I think I'm gonna be the judge, and you guys can work it out between the people. Hold on a second. Everybody's on different channels today. Everybody decided to be live, so the people will catch up later on. I don't want to hold up anybody. Because if you're here, you're here. If you're not, okay. We'll see you next time. You know what I mean, people?
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I agree.
All right. You good people? Y'all ready?
Yes. Yep.
All right. Those who was we're gonna put a marker at 8 minutes. No, let's do it at 10 minutes. Wait a few more minutes. Do it at 10 minutes so we can I don't know where to put my my marker
Okay.
for the folks to come on in.
How's Dom doing? And Randa?
They're doing good. They're doing good. Dom said he could do it tomorrow, but today we'll just go ahead and do it. We just gotta keep going because I don't want to have us, by the time we get the new transcript, I don't want us to have to wait and we already a week behind. They haven't submitted the other transcript yet. So, all right, we are at 9 minutes. We're almost at 9 minutes. And then we're gonna start in 10 minutes so we'll know where to put the marker at. How's everybody doing in the chat?
Who's doing Nicole?
We'll work it out.
We'll multitask, Daddy Lolo.
Yeah, we did it yesterday, so we can't stop the show. Okay.
Exactly. Right.
Change the voices.
Mm.
All right, we are at the marker now. Y'all ready? Let's get started, good people. All right.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. I know we get the witness in just a minute. I got these motions in limine at some ungodly hour, and I'm prepared to rule on them. If the government wants to be heard at all, we can just take care of it. I don't know which of you want to address them. Miss Melendez-Cruz?
Me? Yeah. Yes, Your Honor. Defence Counsel is attempting to ask Your Honour to reverse the very clear rulings that Your Honour made during the pre-trial conference with respect to both John Doe number 1 and Jane Doe number 8. That's how they were referred to in our motion with respect to the other acts.
One second, y'all. I just have to send somebody.
Okay.
1 second, sorry. My bad. Somebody needs a transcript and I need to send it to them.
Oh, no worries. I didn't know if I was.
No, I heard you. One sec.
Did you hear? Okay, good.
My apologies, guys. I'm so sorry. We got people who wants to help
Coming
us out.
out.
They want to help us out, so I'm gonna
Fine.
send it out to the people that wants to help me
Yeah.
out. Okay. Somebody said they want to come in to be Nicole. I need a clerk. Somebody wants to be the clerk. I could be the judge. Somebody could be the clerk, and we need a Nicole. And you'll be Melendez. I'm gonna change your name to Melendez.
Right, okay. Perfect.
Danik is doing it today, or is it Farinella?
Is he there? I can hear you.
Daddy Lolo.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking while I was on mute. I think it's a lot of Nicole. Let me see.
It's a lot of Nicole.
Mr. Cannick doing it today.
Okay, so you
Cannick
good
ain't
then.
here.
You're good then. All right, I'm waiting for Nicole to come in. Just one second.
Okay.
Farinella.
Farinella's coming in too?
Yeah. I noticed who's gonna do the cross examination when she asks any objection, and the defense attorney says whichever defense attorney say no objection, that's who's gonna do the cross examination. I noticed that.
Yeah, that's what the judge said before. We're gonna start from the beginning again, so bear with us. I'm sorry. Okay. Somebody please put the transcript. Black Beauty, can you put the transcript notification on what it is? AP, if you in here, because I don't think people understood what I said in regards to the transcript, guys. Please, somebody, please put that in there. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and go because I can't wait on folks anymore. All right, let's do this because your time is very valuable. All right, let me start from the judge. I'm the judge.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Anybody who's texting me? Oh, okay. I got one person who's gonna send it to me. Hold on a second. One second, y'all. Hold on. My apologies. Remember, I'm not a pro at this.
You're doing really well. Honestly, it's a lot to remember, isn't it? It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot to do.
I'm supposed to be going to a barbecue tomorrow.
Are you?
Tomorrow's the last barbecue day.
It
Holiday.
is for the year?
Oh, is
Yeah,
it?
the last barbecue holiday for the year, yeah.
Mm.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
So October we don't have anything, but then we go into November. Then that's Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
Yay, that's my favorite time of the year.
So we get back to the soul food.
Oh, yummy. Sounds nice.
My favorite holiday is Christmas.
Thank you, Miss
No,
B.
Christmas
Miss B,
and Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving's
Yeah.
my favorite because you feel that
Mm.
warmth and that family togetherness. You know, I love Thanksgiving. I love
Thanksgiving,
Thanksgiving.
Christmas, and Daddy Lolo Day.
That's your birthday?
Yeah, it's a
Oh.
universal holiday. Everybody's supposed to know that.
Oh, happy birthday then.
Mhm.
No, not today. I'm just saying, Daddy Lolo Day is one of my favorite holidays.
Is the transcript still blurry? Somebody just said the transcript is blurry. Is it still blurry, guys? Let me know if it's blurry for you.
Mine's okay.
My birthday, June 22nd.
Ah.
Oh. So why you got me saying happy birthday to you for
Yeah,
Christmas?
it's a Daddy Lolo.
I
Day.
didn't have you saying happy birthday. I was just saying Daddy Lolo Day is
Hey, who is this? Welcome.
It's Troky. How are you?
Hi, Truckee. How are you?
I am good.
So who are you coming to play for us?
I don't know. Who do you need?
We need the clerk. We need Nicole because we have one other person coming in too. So we need well, you could be the judge. I'll just be the clerk.
Okay.
So you have the 26, right?
I do. What page are we on?
We're on the first page after the introduction.
Okay.
Okay, you're the judge. I changed your name to judge just now, and I will be the clerk. Let me change. Thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
Okay, where's my Nicole? Nicole, come on in here. I just sent the link to Nicole.
Come on in here. Oh gosh. Funny.
Okay, there we go. There go Nicole. Let me change her name to Nicole. We all here, y'all.
Hi.
Okay, you gonna be Farinella, Panic?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, all right, guys. Y'all, we're so sorry for the late start. We are all here now. All right. Let's start. Roll action. We can start with the court, which is the judge. Go ahead on, judge.
Okay. I know we'll get the witness in just a minute. I got these motions in the mind at some ungodly hour, and I'm prepared to rule on them. If the government wants to be heard at all, we can just take care of it. I don't know which one of you wants to address them.
Yes, Your Honour. Defence Counsel is attempting to ask Your Honour to reverse the very clear rulings that Your Honour made during the pre-trial conference with respect to both John Doe number 1 and Jane Doe number 8. That's how they were referred to in our motion with respect to the other acts. Your Honour specifically noted that for both of these victims, the evidence was clear, direct evidence of the means and methods of the enterprise, and that with respect to the actual conduct, It was no more inflammatory than the conduct that's been charged in the case. So the government would ask that Your Honour not reverse the very clear ruling that you made at the pre-trial conference.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. There's some background noises.
It's not on me, definitely.
It's like wind. Somebody's near the wind.
Must be my fan. 1 second.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Mr. Scholar, is there anything else that you want to supplement your letter with?
Your Honor.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to go ahead and do it? Or you want? Your Honor, would it be possible have turned off the mic to the public area? Is it possible have it turned off?
I mean, I read your submission, which was quite thorough. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to it.
Well, just with respect to...
Are you saying that it's because it's a sealed letter?
Yes, Judge. And also what I'm about to go into shouldn't be publicly divulged.
I see. So why don't we come over to the side with Miss Cruz Melendez with the court reporter, and you tell me what it is. Just make sure the court reporter can hear you.
Okay. It's just that based upon the review of the 3500, it appears that what is being alleged in the forcible rape, that is not what the theory of case was within the indictment. And it wasn't what the government opened on, and it hasn't been the theory that has been developed through the direct examination of the witnesses.
I'm not sure that so we're talking about Jane Doe number 8?
Yes.
I'm not sure I read it that way. In my view, it's relevant. Because according to 3500 material, she told him that she was 17, and there's been cross-examination, and part of the defense is that he wasn't aware of the people were 17 or they weren't 17. So it's certainly relevant to that. I think, as I ruled in my pretrial ruling, it's relevant to the means and method of the enterprise because of the sort of pattern of conduct that happened at these conferences. So I'm not going to change that ruling.
Yes.
And we might as well discuss John Doe number 1.
Yes.
Can I note one thing for the record with respect to Jane Doe number 8?
Surely.
It's still wind, guys. Still backdoor noises.
I've got any on my end. It's quiet. I'm not sure.
And now it stopped.
Oh,
Okay.
has it stopped?
Okay.
Is it okay? Okay. As Your Honour knows, we charged with respect to Jane Doe number 3 an assault while Jane Doe number 3 was unconscious and unable to consent, as well as force, which Mr. Kelly, with respect to Jane Doe number 4 and with respect to Jane Doe number 5, used threatening methods in order to engage in sexual conduct attacking them. So with respect to the manner in which the sexual contact happened with Jane Doe number 8, we would state that it's no more inflammatory than the other charges in the case.
I mean, it is true that there is the testimony of the 2 victims that testified so far, there is certainly a coercive aspect to their claim. And so, like I said, I read it as non-consensual. I didn't read it as, well, to me, it's not really very different from everything else. The only difference is, as you point out in your submission, is that she only met him one time, but to me, that doesn't really change the relevance of the evidence. So I'm going to deny your application, and you can have an exception to that ruling.
Yes. Judge? Did we lose a judge?
I don't know where she is.
Judge, are you still there? Are you
Hello?
muted?
She probably on mute.
No, she's not. She's open.
Oh.
Judge?
Hello.
Yes, we hear you. Does she not hear us?
Mm.
All right, I'm going to read it.
Okay.
And then with respect to John Doe number 1, who's John Doe?
John Doe number 1.
John Doe number 1, first of all, again, the sexual contact with him is also relevant to means and method. He is, I believe, under 18.
That's correct. 16, 17.
When he
back.
okay.
When he first met the defendant, and that while the gender of the victim is different, the nature of the conduct is not appreciably different. I will also say I read the 3500 material, and I noted that there was some descriptions in there of the way the defendant is alleged to have spoken to, I think, Miss Jocelyn Savage, directing her to have sex with John Doe number 1 in a way that's consistent with the way other witnesses have described the way he treated these young women. And so I think that's relevant for that purpose too.
Well, Judge, we drew that distinction in our motion, just that we were seeking to preclude him from testifying as to the more salacious claims, salacious facts, some testimony about a dildo, some testimony he would offer about some relations with Mr. Kelly that has nothing to do with the charges themselves.
Well, they do, in my view, and I will say I mean this sincerely. I think we've crossed the salacious bridge quite some time ago. That's the nature of these cases, and particularly one that alleged to have occurred the way this case has. I mean, one of the things which happened appropriately. So in the opening statement was, how could this be an enterprise? And this conduct to me is demonstrative of the existence of an enterprise and the continuation of it. So you have an exception to the ruling too.
All right. And number 3.
You don't object to that, do you?
Your Honor, the government is because
The famous people?
the names of the famous people don't have relevance to the issue that they're trying to raise. To the extent they want to question whether or not celebrities were present, we're more than fine with that aspect of it. But from the government's perspective, the only purpose of raising specific celebrities' names is to gain favour with the jury.
Well, I again haven't really followed this case, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that those famous people probably are trying to get as far away from him as they can right now. So I would be careful about that.
Definitely.
But it's fine to mention that there were, stars there, and it's certainly relevant as to the extra security. That's when the relevance of the song titles.
Well, it's just a matter of these are songs that he's writing while he's in the studio.
Right.
Sometimes 24-hour sessions, and in order for the witness to know what we're talking about, the song titles are necessary in order to ask the witness so that he knows what song we're talking about.
Who are we talking about? Not an agent.
No, not an agent. I believe he wrote I Believe I Can Fly and certainly some other songs, but in case it comes up, we'll want to be able to ask him about it. Certainly about writing certain songs.
If he needs to be oriented as to the place and time, that's fine. I mean,
Can we?
Do I think it's totally relevant? Not particularly. Do I think it also offsets in any way, shape, or form? Let me turn this down 1 second. Any way, shape, or form what the other testimony is? No, but I mean, I don't really see the relevance. We'll see what happens when it comes up. To me, it's not a huge deal one way or the other.
And as far as the celebrities, just say when it comes up.
You can ask. I think that's fine when it comes up. If it's somebody famous, you're going to have extra security for that.
Definitely.
That's perfectly fine. So win two, lose two.
I'll take it.
Mr. Scholar, I think in view of the rulings, it doesn't have to be sealed. Am I correct?
No, Judge.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be sealed.
No.
Okay, great. Just to recap, I'm denying the motions in the mind with respect to the testimony of Jane Doe.
Number 8.
Number 8 and John Doe.
Number 1.
Number 1, I'm granting the application to permit questioning regarding various people who visited the location and with respect to the songs that were being worked on. I'm not 100% sure I see the relevance, but if it's necessary to orient a witness as to the place or time, that's fine. I don't think we have anything else to do. So how much? I'm sorry, I lost my place a little bit. Are we still on direct?
We are.
Yes, we are.
Oh.
You said you were about a half hour left.
45 minutes.
And Mr. Farinella, are you doing the cross of this witness?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, Your Honor, I am.
Do you have an idea how long you might take with him?
I'm not certain, Your Honor, but
A day?
no, it's not a day, Your Honor.
All right.
A few hours, perhaps.
A few hours. Okay.
If that, I don't know.
You don't want me to tie you down. All right. As we're continuing in the direct, be thinking of, being efficient. It's all I ask, okay?
Yes, Your Honor, I understand.
Anything else anybody wants to put on the record?
Your Honor, just to alert the court.
Into the microphone, if you don't mind.
Just to alert the court, we do anticipate another motion in limine as it relates to John Doe. I think John Doe number 1, and we'll make that argument before he testifies.
Are you going to leave me in suspense? When is he testifying?
He's scheduled to testify today, Your Honor.
Okay. So you know what? I'll just have to wait. So let's get the witness and then we'll get the jury. Okay, the witness is here. Let's get the jury, please.
You may be seated. You may be seated. Sorry.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
First of all, let me apologize for the delay. This was another one of those legal issues that we have to resolve, but I think it's going to move things along a little bit, which is one of my goals here. We are ready to continue with the direct examination of the witness.
The witness is reminded he is still under oath. Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. Yesterday, before we ended, you testified about the time that you worked at Chicago.
Hold on, y'all.
No,
Sorry.
it's not me, is it?
Hold on. Arnold, go ahead on. Missy, I'm gonna change your name to Arnold. Hold on. Arnold. There we go. All right, I just changed the name. I spelled it wrong, but I just changed the name to Arnold. We got everybody in there now? We got everybody? Okay.
So my back, yeah. Good morning.
Oh.
No. Good morning. Yesterday, before we ended, you testified about the time that you worked at Chicago Tracks and then the chocolate factory at 865 North Larrabee. And in your testimony, you referenced a room on that floor plan called, that referred to what one and records. Do you recall that?
What is she doing?
I could.
Hold on.
I don't have that one.
You don't have that one? That's page 144. You don't have that? Hold on. Let me see.
1440. Yes,
Send it
ma'am.
to you. I just sent it to you today.
That's what I'm opening up, and it's not. I'm on 1469.
It's 1481.
1481.
My bad.
It's okay.
Sorry, that was
That's
me.
where I was.
Yeah, 1481 it is the
I
page.
apologize, guys.
Line 10.
Line 10 for 1481.
Yeah.
I'm coming. I was going through the pages so fast. Around 1481.
That was my
All right,
fault.
right
I
here.
gave you 440. I'm sorry.
Okay, so yes,
Is your microphone on?
there it is. Power cycle.
All right, go ahead. What is Rocklin Records?
It was a record label and production company that Mr. Kelly had or has. I don't know.
Am I
Oh.
showing the witness? Oh, am I Miss Geddes again as well?
Yeah, you Miss Geddes.
Fine.
You're the prosecutor, period.
Okay, right. Am I showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as government exhibit 525U? Do you recognize what's shown in 525U?
Yes.
What is in 525U?
It is the gated entrance at 865 Larrabee.
And again, the government offers 525U.
Any objective?
No
Any
objection.
objection?
No objection.
Okay, it's an evidence. You can display it.
This barbed wire fence, from where to where did that extend?
Well, to the end of the property, which would have been the northmost side of the parking lot along Larrabee. It extended down to the connect to the buildings, actually to the adjoining structure.
And in order to get to the parking lot for Chicago Tracks and then the chocolate factory on Larrabee, did an individual need to enter through this entrance?
Yes, that's correct.
And in order to leave Chicago Tracks and the chocolate factory on Larrabee, did an individual need to go out this entrance?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm showing the witness what's in evidence as government exhibit 502. Do you recognize 502A?
Yes,
What is it? What is that?
it's the gates to the house in Olympia Fields at 1 Morrow's Lane.
And if you could show the witness only what's been marked for identification and 502B. What's 502B, if you recognize it?
Yes, it's part of the fence that runs along the property line of 1 Morrow's Lane.
And 502C, do you recognize that?
Yes, that's the view of the same house when you pass, once you're inside the gates to the property.
And whose house is that?
That's Mr. Kelly's.
The government offers 502B and C.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay, that's an evidence. You can display it.
So I'm showing 502B first. There appears to be a court of some kind. What is that?
I can't tell from the photo, but depending on the time frame, it's either a tennis court or a basketball court.
So during the time period you were there, it was used for two different purposes. Is that correct?
Correct.
And just to be clear, that court is on the defendant's property.
Yes, that's correct.
Can you describe the different structures? that are on the defendant's property at 1 Maros Lane in Olympia Fields?
Sure. There was a main house. To the right side, if you're facing the house, it was a large garage. It had 3 bay doors, I believe, if I remember correctly. There would have been a pathway from the garage towards what was the tennis court or slash basketball court. And then there was sort of a gazebo structure there that at one point in time was also closed in to make sort of a small like cabin. And from the garage and between the garage and the house would be a pathway that went back to the side entrance of the house that went into the basement. There's there's a yard to that side. Then that would have either been empty or had a tent or had an ultimate larger tent.
You talked about the enclosed gazebo. Was there a name that people who worked at the defendant's residence referred to?
I believe it was called the cabin at one point in time.
And you mentioned the garage with the 3 bays. Was that an attached or detached garage?
It was detached.
Can you describe, did you have an opportunity to go inside that detached garage?
Yes.
Can you describe what was inside the garage?
Excuse me. As far as I remember, there was always a basketball a boxing ring inside the garage. It was always used as a gym when I worked at the property.
The area inside the detached garage was used as a gym. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you describe the basketball ring?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Can you describe the boxing ring?
Oh, yes, yes. It was a regulation sized, to my knowledge, full size boxing ring with the ropes around the outside.
You testified that it was elevated. How was it elevated?
I mean, it was. It was. I'm not exactly sure of the construction of the boxing ring, but it's probably 2.5, 3 feet above the ground, and it's springy, so there's sort of some spring mechanism underneath it with the ropes around the top of it, just as you would see as a boxing ring on TV, on the television.
Are you aware of whether an individual could crawl underneath the boxing ring?
It would have a curtain around the outside.
We're having trouble with that mic again.
Oh, there was a curtain around the bottom of the ring. It would have been open underneath, and we used a lot for storage, as I recall.
You also described that there were tents. There was a tent. Where was the tent situated?
Well, it was on the side of the property. So between where the garage would stand and the house would be a path that went back to the side of the house. There would have been a patio, not originally, but it would have been just a big open yard. But at some point in time, while we were at that address, the patio was built and the tent was put on there, and then a bigger tent, like a very large tent, was put on there ultimately.
And was that tent there on a semi-permanent basis, or was it just used for parties?
Well, maybe the original tent that was there was more of a temporary structure, but this was a permanently installed tent at one point in time.
You mentioned that there was I think you said there was a side entrance to the basement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what was inside the basement?
That was the entrance to the studio at the house.
Can you describe the layout of the studio?
Sure. So when you came in from downstairs, there would be an entry into like what was a reception area, a desk there, a bathroom, and then a closet. The basement was renovated to make a kitchen down there as well, and there was a proper reception desk, but otherwise it was like a little closet turned into an office when we first started there, and that would be where you could control the gate. People would come in there, and then you would walk down a hallway to a room to kind of an opening where the actual studio was. So it was so when you come into the reception, the wall you're looking at is the backside of the actual studio, and you will walk around it. There will be a vocal booth much smaller than the ones that were at Larrabee. And then there will be a large control room where would be the next room down, and double doors there that section off the rest of the house, which originally was storage through there.
Was there a name for the first studio that you described?
I believe we called it Music One.
What, if anything else, was located in that basement area?
So there would be, when you go through those double doors, there would be stairs that led up to the first floor of the house and a long hallway where there will be a door to what will be underneath the aquarium. There was a big aquarium upstairs. So there will be a storage room underneath the aquarium there. Then there was originally, when we went to Olympia Fields, two sort of rooms used for storage. I think may have been a classroom at one point in time for his family. I'm not entirely sure what it was used for originally. We ultimately turned those rooms into one more studio.
And can you describe the interior of that studio?
Yes, it had logs on the wall and it was called the cabin studio.
Why was it? And was there anything across from that cabin studio?
No, across steel would have been the hallway, I think.
What, if anything else, was located in that basement area?
Then there would have been another door. So as he was developing the basement for the studio space, that kind of moved the storage further and further. So there was another storage room right there after you passed through. And then on the left side would have been where the studio storage would have been, where there would have been some technical equipment and amplifiers and things like that. Then past that, you would be was storage, and then it turned into a theater room, and then you would be at the other side of the house.
When you say a theatre room, what are you referring to?
It was an actual like movie theater with raised seats, not unlike these chairs here.
And did you also have an opportunity to go inside the main house apart from the basement area?
Yes,
Can you describe how many floors was the main house?
the basement and 2 floors above ground.
Can you describe that first floor above the basement?
Sure. If you were to come in the main front door of the house, there was an entryway with an office room just to the right as you come in and a bathroom to the left. Then you walked into a grand living room, 2 stories high, with big windows on the back wall that were kind of curved. Off the living room will be a kitchen to the left. Once you got into the living room, to the right was a huge projection TV, like movie theater size projection TV. If you can go into the kitchen, and then off the back of the kitchen was a sunroom. Instead of walking into the living room, you walk down the hallway. There would be a dining room that was later converted into like a lounge, which would sit across from the kitchen. And then there will be the servants' entrance at that far side of the house, which would be where the dumpsters were kept. And then, sorry, that part. If you walked in the door and you turned to the right instead of coming into the living room, there will be a long hallway that curved around with a huge aquarium that had sharks and fish in it, big fish. And then to the right as you come around the corner will be a swimming pool area. Then next to the swimming pool was a billiard room and a game room. So past the swimming pool, you go to the game room. It was a very large room, again, with windows that are kind of curved on one side. And then a bathroom that was accessible through like a small little room that at one point in time, I believe, had mirrors on it. It was kind of like a dance room, a bar, like a dancer's bar.
How were the games room and the dancer studio that you just described connected, if at all?
Well, there was a door from the game room that entered into that room. and the bathroom was connected to that room. And the bathroom that was in that was connected to the bedroom.
So there was the game room, billiard room, and then that was connected to the room with the mirror along the walls. And then there was a bathroom connected to that. Is that correct?
Correct. There was also a bathroom on the back side of that, which was meant for the pool, that was only accessible from the pool. And from the game room, you can go from one door to go to the pool area.
And the defendant's residence in Olympia Fields, what is the neighborhood like there?
It was fairly large houses, none as big as his house was, but pretty big size houses. It was a pretty large neighborhood.
And the defendant's residence, was it set back from the main road?
Yes. So it was a normal neighborhood street, and then you would go down this lane where there was only one house on each side, and there would be a gate, and you would go inside it. I think it was probably the size of, a few lots in size. I don't know the actual acreage of the property, but it was a decent drive from the gate to the back to the house.
When you started working at the defendant's studio within Olympia Fields, how, if at all, did your responsibilities change?
The runs were a lot further having to drive to in the city of Chicago. Things were a lot closer. Out there, we would go to the mall, which was in Orland Park, or to restaurants, which was further away, going to get petty cash and cash some checks. The bank was in the city, and Base Productions office was in Oak Park. So I would have to drive to Oak Park. So I did a lot of that. The concept, the job was pretty much the same, just that there was a lot more driving. There was only the one studio to start, so there wasn't as much production going on. Once we had the second studio built, the first studio was used a lot for production and people writing music, while he could use his other studio for his primary recording.
When you were working at the defendant's studio in Olympia Fields, what, if anything, protocols did you follow for transport? I think you said that. Did you continue to transport some of the defendant's personal guests?
I did sometimes, yes.
And when you were working, so now I want to talk about the time when you were in Olympia Fields. I won't continue to say Olympia Fields. I'll make clear if I ask you a question about your time at the chocolate factory on Larrabee. So when you were in Olympia Fields, how would you transport guests when you were there?
It would be the same as before.
Whose vehicle would you use? Your own or somebody else's?
No, we always had a runner van, or else there would be an excursion that security had, so we could use the security. The runners or myself would be able to use those vehicles for transporting.
And are you aware of what other vehicles the defendant had at Olympia Fields?
Yes,
What type of cars did he have?
he had a lot of cars over a long period of time. He had a Maybach, Mercedes-Benz Maybach. He had a Lamborghini at one point, a Mercedes-Benz SLR, I think it was called. He had a couple of Jeeps at one point. There was a Chrysler 300 car too.
Do you remember what color the Chrysler 300 was?
It was black and red. I think black across the bottom and red across the top, if I remember correctly.
And what you mentioned that he, and by the way, were there other cars in addition to the cars that you just described?
Yes, there would have been a couple of excursions, a black one, and then at one point in time, we had one that was red and brown, and then the runner would have a minivan. So there would be a red van. I think there was a brown van at one point in time too, and he had for a brief time he had a Rolls Royce.
You mentioned that there were a couple of excursions. Is that correct?
Yes.
What do you mean by excursions?
It's the large Ford SUVs, I guess, that were made at that time.
Did you ever use the defendant's cars that you just described, aside from the excursion and the minivan, to transport guests?
Yes, I used the Maybach to take people to places before.
And by people, who are you referring to?
Your question was about guests. I use a Maybach to taking guests.
Including female guests.
That's correct.
When one of the defendant's personal guests arrived at the chocolate factory, again in Olympia Fields, what was the protocol for letting them in?
If the person arrived to the gate and used the call box or called from a cell phone, it would be the same process. We either receive instructions as to what to do with the person to let them in or where they wanted to go, or we would have to call and get instructions.
Who would you call?
I would call Rob, or I would call someone that I knew that was with Rob.
And who, again, are some of the individuals that you might call then if you wanted to get in touch with Rob, the defendant?
I'm sorry. One more thing. If Rob was in the studio or around, we run a note to him, the same as in the studio. We let him know that someone was at the gate. I'm sorry. Could you repeat your question?
Sure. Who are some of the individuals that you would call to get in touch with the defendant if you weren't able to get in touch directly with the defendant?
The same individuals that would have been before that, either Junebug or Donnie, who was his music director, or anybody that I knew was with him, a security guard, someone that can just have a phone to pass him. So it didn't really matter. As long as I know I could get a hold of him, I could call anybody who could hand him the phone.
Now, you saw earlier that gate. I think you referenced as well the gate that was in front of the property. How did an individual get into the gate? What had to happen?
So there was a button in the reception that could open the gate.
And that was the reception in the studio itself?
So as soon as you come down the basement stairs, there's that opening area that was receiving people. There was a desk there, and then the button will be there to open up the gate.
And was there any security situated near the gate?
Depending on the time frame, there was one point in time a guardhouse on the property where somebody would be situated. Otherwise, there would be somebody sitting in an excursion. But there was frequent times where there was nobody there, and there was a security camera in reception, so you could actually see the gate clearly on the security camera.
And when you said that, there were times when there was an excursion there. Was anyone inside that excursion?
Oftentimes, there will be a single security person and two security persons sitting in that excursion.
So once you learned where a guest was to be escorted to, what, if anything, would you have the guest do before the guest was escorted to that particular location?
There was a large period of time when we were having people sign confidentiality agreements.
What did you understand to be in this confidentiality agreement? Did you have an opportunity to read the agreements?
Yes.
What did you understand that they said?
Well, the agreement said that the person was not to film, take photographs, or talk about anything that they had seen or had experienced or been around at the time at the studio.
And what, if anything, did a guest provide upon signing when they were presented with this confidentiality agreement?
We would have photocopied a driver's license as we did, the same process we did in the city, or we take a Polaroid of them and staple it to the actual confidentiality agreement.
And what was the purpose? What did you understand the purpose to be of taking? I'm assuming you take a Polaroid person of the individual signing the picture. Is that right?
Yes, a Polaroid of the person.
What was the purpose of taking a Polaroid picture of the person signing the agreement?
To connect the person as to who is that signed it so you can know who that person was.
And you said there at times you also make copies of an individual's driver's license. Is that right?
That's correct.
Where would these copies be made?
Well, there was a photocopier in the reception area, and there was at one point in the guardhouse that was used for when people came in and people would check in at the guardhouse.
Now, you testified earlier that you started working at the chocolate factory at Olympia Fields after you left 865 North Larrabee. Is that correct?
My employment was continuous, but yes, the studio itself started once it left Chicago, it started.
And did you continue working at the chocolate factory at Olympia Fields through the time when the defendant left Olympia Fields?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was.
And so you were there the entire time that the chocolate factory was located at Olympia Fields. Is that correct?
Oh, sorry. There was a brief period of time in 2008 when I was not employed, but aside from that time, yes, the whole time I was employed by him, I worked there.
During the time, so minus the short period in 2008, during that time, was there ever a time when a guest had to provide their identification twice?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So you testified earlier that there was I think you said that there was a photocopier machine in that guard shack. Is that correct?
Yes.
And there was also a photocopy machine in the studio itself. Is that right?
Yes.
Fair to say that the guest would sign one confidentiality agreement.
Yes. Anybody that came in either had signed that at the gate or else would have done it in the reception at the time. We were collecting confidentiality agreements.
And they also would have only provided their identification or had a Polaroid picture taken once, correct?
Correct.
Now, did all guests sign confidentiality agreements and provide either a driver's license or have their picture taken using a Polaroid camera?
Well, I can't be certain it was 100%, but that was the policy, to always try to get it during that time frame.
How about when guests came on a regular basis to the chocolate factory? Did they sign each time they came?
Not necessarily. There were certainly times where we would know that they had already signed one. Either they, it doesn't matter what, they would have been there before or whatever. And I know I didn't make somebody sign something because I knew there was already one. And I knew somebody did the same thing, especially when it was busy.
Beside, again, referring to the time in Olympia Fields, beside escorting a guest to a particular location within Olympia Fields, what, if any, interaction would you have with the defendant's personal guests?
I may receive a phone call either from reception or else to a cell phone that I had asking to speak to Mr. Kelly would be the most common call.
And who called you?
Anybody who was a guest that was there would call me, or was anybody that was trying to reach Mr. Kelly would call either the reception phone or would call my cell phone.
What other interaction did you have with the defendant's guests?
If they could have been delivering food or escorting somebody or giving someone a ride.
Did you receive guests from individuals who wanted to move around Did you receive calls from guests who wanted to move around the studio?
Yeah, I would have received a call if someone asked to be taken to a specific place.
Such as where?
To say from the lounge to the studio could be one place. Can you take me to the studio?
When you received a call like that, what did you do?
If I had been previously told to expect the call, I would already know to take the person or how to action. If I hadn't, then I'd have to ask for permission or find Mr. Kelly to ask what I should do.
And who did you ask permission from?
I'd either call Rob or someone I knew that was with him could get to him so I could speak to him.
When a guest was ready to leave Olympia Fields, what happened?
They would either just leave or I get a phone call or we get instructions to escort somebody.
And can you describe the type of telephone call that you would receive from guests who wanted to leave?
It would either be someone where somebody would call to ask to speak to Mr. Kelly, and then he would give us instructions as to what to do next. Those instructions could be to escort them to their vehicle or to give them a ride somewhere. Or else somebody may call and say, "Can I get a ride to someplace?" And if we had gotten instructions, we would take the person where they were supposed to go. Or else I'd have to reach out and find out from him or someone who was near him to find out where to, what to do with the request.
Were there times that you were not able to reach the defendant after you received a request from a guest to leave?
I can't be for sure, but there was often times when I was unable to reach him when there was a phone call.
And what, if anything, would you do if you had not received permission?
I will
If
continue.
if you were
Sorry.
not able to contact the defendant?
I will continue to trying to reach him until I did.
And what would the guest do as you tried to reach the defendant?
We'll wait to hear back from me, or else we'll call back to see if there had been an update. And then as soon as I would, until I could, I'd say, we're still trying to reach him.
Now, in the time that you spent at the chocolate factory in Olympia Fields, when you were there, did you see guests freely roaming around Olympia Fields, the defendant's residence at Olympia Fields?
Well, from time to time, people will walk into the room that you be in, or if we be outside, someone will walk out of a car or walk out of the house to a car. Yeah, that did happen.
On a regular basis?
Semi-regular. I just remember that we'd always scatter as soon as somebody stepped out of the house. We'd leave to get out of the way.
And who are you referring to? What do you mean you would scatter?
So if it was a female guest, we just clear out. That's the best way I could describe it. Just like actually just clearing out, just like leaving the area.
Why is that?
That was what we were instructed to do. It's just to leave if we were in the area where they were coming through.
So you testified that you did see individuals in the area itself, but would you describe the guests' time when guests were at Olympia Fields? Were they able to roam freely?
Generally, no. People would ask for permission to go from place to place.
And when you say people, who are you referring to?
Guests would call to ask to move from place to place, or we would get notification when somebody was going to need to be moved.
And again, who were you receiving notification from?
Directly or indirectly from Rob.
Did you, I think you testified earlier that you worked at Olympia Fields, or you worked at the chocolate factory at Olympia Fields for the entire time that the defendant had that studio. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Were you there when the defendant no longer was at Olympia Fields?
Yes, I still work for him for an additional, at least a year, I think, after, or around a year after we left Olympia Fields.
What, if any, studio did the defendant use after he was not at Olympia Fields?
There was a studio on Ohio Street, just off the interstate in downtown Chicago.
And do you recall when the defendant stopped working at Olympia Fields or stopped using the studio at Olympia Fields?
Yeah, I don't know officially, but I think it was in midway through 2010.
I'm showing the witness what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 505A. Do you recognise 505A?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. And 505C?
Yes.
What is 505C?
Sorry, that's the entrance to the building off of Ohio that the studio was located in.
And 505B?
Yep, same entrance. It didn't have the name on it at the time, I don't believe. I believe that was added later.
But that was the...
That's the entrance.
And that was the entrance to the building where the studio the defendant was using on Ohio Street was located.
Correct.
You testified earlier, I believe, that you also held a position as a road manager. Is that correct?
Yes.
When did you serve as the road manager?
When we would travel for tours between 2006-ish, let me see, 2006, I think, was the first summer. 2006 until the last tour we did, which was in 2011.
Do you recall which tours you accompanied the defendant on?
Yes, it was the Lighted Up tour, the Double Up tour, Ladies Make Some Noise tour, and the Love Letter tour.
And did you also go on the Best of Both Worlds tour?
I did, yes.
Were you serving as the road manager for each of these tours?
No, not on the Best of Both Worlds tour.
But on the other tours that you just described?
I believe so, yes.
What were your duties and responsibilities when you were acting as a road manager? In effect?
Well, I had to make sure that the buses were stopped, that the drivers were where they needed to be, that we were able to get to our destinations. There was other people that we would coordinate scheduling with, make sure that the hotels, and we were checking hotels, got all the room keys for the hotels that were needed, arranging some travel for some people coming out, in and out, coming in to see the show. And also, if there was an SUV, making sure that we had an SUV available. If there was one that was following us, that the person knew where to be for each. The driver of the SUV knew where he was going to be. There would often be basketball played before every show, and often an after party or appearance after the concert, and coordinated to make sure everybody was where they needed to be.
How did you travel when you were on tour with the defendant?
On a separate bus.
How many buses travelled along with the defendant when he was on tour?
It varied on tour. It could be anywhere from 3 buses to 6.
When you were on tour with the defendant, what, if anything, did you do to connect the defendant to women that he didn't previously know?
Objection.
Overruled.
There will be instances where I would be told to hand a small piece of paper with his phone number on it to somebody, or I may have been given instructions to either escort somebody to either the backstage area or to a hotel or to a vehicle.
You said there may be instances when you might give out a piece of paper. On how many regular of a basis did you give out pieces of paper with the defendant's number?
It was infrequent for me to do that in the concert setting. Sometimes maybe in the after party or after party at a club or after party in the venue would be more common for me to be asked to do that. If we were traveling or we went to a mall or something, it might be possible he would ask me to hand him a number to somebody as well.
Again, you said it might be possible for you to hand out a number. How regularly did you distribute the defendant's number when you were on tour with him at any of the different venues that you just described?
It will be asked of me to do fairly regularly.
And who asked you to do that?
Rob would ask me to.
What were the different types of venues where you would distribute the defendant's telephone number?
It could be at the mall, the after party.
How about when you were at restaurants with the defendant?
I can't think of a specific instance, but there could certainly have been times when I was asked to hand a number off at a restaurant.
You testified that you would distribute a piece of paper. Who created that piece of paper?
Myself or somebody else from the entourage or one of the runners or engineers, we'd print up, either use a computer to type up the number on a bunch of slips of paper and cut them up, or else we would tear sheets of paper up and write the number on it by hand.
And how regularly were those pieces of papers created?
As far as I can remember, we always had those, or somebody always had those on hand.
Who carried the pieces of paper?
Anybody who was, a lot of people carried the paper.
And by a lot of people, what roles did these people serve in who were carrying the pieces of paper?
All of us that were in his traveling party. Not necessarily all of us. That's an overstatement. Most of us in the traveling party. So myself and another assistant, a runner will have some, other people that were traveling, even sometimes probably I think Donnie might have had some on him.
Who was Donnie again?
The music director.
And who identified a particular female to give one of these pieces of paper with a defendant's number?
I would only give it out at direction from Rob.
Did you always receive directions directly from Rob, or did you sometimes receive them from other people as well?
Yes, I could have received it indirectly, but from someone who I knew was speaking to him.
Speaking on behalf of the defendant?
That's correct, speaking on behalf.
Now, you testified earlier that it was infrequent that you would distribute the defendant's number at concerts. Is that right?
That's right, that's correct.
Were you aware of whether other individuals distributed the defendant's number to individuals, to female, at concerts?
Yes, I believe there were.
And why is it that you believe that?
Because I would give those sheets of paper to other people who were traveling with us.
Now, and when you say, who did you give those sheets of paper to?
To anybody else that was in the traveling party. Any of the guys that were playing, some of the guys who played basketball with him had numbers. Some of, anybody that was around some people. Some of the friends that might have flown into town will have some numbers as well.
And again, you are referring to pieces of paper with defendant's number on it, correct?
Yes, pieces of paper with Rob's number on it, yes.
You testified that it was infrequent that you would distribute it at concerts. Why is that?
Usually while he was performing or while he was in concert was my downtime. So I could either take a nap, sleep on the bus. I make sure his dressing room was cleaned up and ready to go, that the food was swapped out, that if he needed a special meal, that it had to be picked up. I didn't have any responsibilities for the actual performance, so that was my time to get away and rest.
All right. So, fair to say you just weren't in the location where the numbers were being distributed.
That's correct.
You testified that there were 3 to 4 buses. I don't know. How many buses would you say travelled at a time?
Well, depending on the tour, 3 to 6 or even 8 could be on the tour, 8 buses.
Who else travelled on these buses that were going on the defendant's tour?
Well, there will be a bus for the band. If there was dancers, the dancers will have their own bus. There were some tours where security had their own bus. Then there will be a crew bus, the bus that was traveling, that the traveling party will have. And sometimes there will be a bus for female guests.
Female guests of whom?
Of Mr. Kelly.
Are you aware of who travelled on the bus that the defendant travelled on?
Well, sometimes, depending on the tour, it could have been the family. His family could have been on the bus with him. He may have been traveling with a guest. He may have been traveling by himself.
While you were working for the defendant, were you provided with a cellular telephone for work?
Yes, I was.
Do you recall the telephone number?
Yes, yes, I do.
What is it?
312-213-9348.
Other than you, who, if anyone else, used that phone?
Well, Rob will use the phone, and I probably have handed it over to another runner to use from time to time, but primarily it would be my phone, or Rob would use it.
Why would Rob use your cellular phone?
If I received a call that was for him, I would take and give him the phone, and I wouldn't necessarily get it back right away, maybe for some time before I get it. But it was his phone for me to carry around and take calls. I didn't take personal calls on that phone. It was always only for my job that I had that phone.
Now, going back to your time when you were not on tour and you were working at the chocolate factory at Olympia Fields, where in Olympia Fields were the defendant's female guests escorted to? Which different areas?
Well, depending on the time frame while we were there into the studio, there would have been a lounge down there or into one of the studio rooms or one of the vocal booths. The live rooms, there was other rooms used. The pool room, somebody could have been put in the pool room. Someone could have been put in the game room where the pool table was. There was a theater. Somebody could have been put down into the theater. The garage would be a place where the boxing ring was. Some people could go into the garage.
Where were the tour buses when the defendant was not on tour?
We always had one, almost always had at least one tour bus. It would either be parked in the driveway in front of the garage or on the long drive to the gate. Sometimes when we would get, especially towards the last couple of tours, we could have 3 or 4 tour buses inside the gate before we'd be ready to leave to depart for the tour.
Who, if anyone, spent time on that tour bus while it was parked at Olympia Fields?
Rob would often sleep on the tour bus, and sometimes there would be female guests on the bus as well.
Now, on how regular of a basis did the defendant have female guests arriving at the chocolate factory and Olympia Fields?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
How regularly did the defendant have female guests coming to Olympia Fields?
All the time.
And was there one guest there at a time or more than one guest there at a time?
There was frequently more than one guest. There could be just one. There could be quite a few. There were a lot of people coming and going.
And were there some individuals who stayed at the defendant's house in Olympia Fields or on its property for days at a time?
Yeah.
Did you become familiar with some of the individuals who came on a regular basis to Olympia Fields?
Well, we become, with some of the names for sure.
Who are some of the individuals? Just first names, please. Who are some of the individuals that you recall spending time at Olympia Fields on a regular basis?
There was Kathy, Ebony, Mary Jane, Rebecca, Tamika, Kiva. I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's more. If you want me to stop, if you want me to keep thinking, I can.
I'm sorry. Could I just ask, for what time frame are we talking about here?
Generally.
Oh, sorry. Generally, in what years?
So 2004 to about 2011.
2011, okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
The individuals that you just named, did you become aware of whether these were true names or not true names?
In some instances where I would maybe had booked a flight for somebody, I could know what their first name was or would be, but sometimes it seemed like it was the same name and it was used for multiple people.
While you were working for the defendant, did you become aware of the different roles that defendant employed people to fulfill?
Yes.
What are the different buckets of jobs that the defendant employed people to do?
There was the music director, engineer, assistant engineer, receptionist, runner, assistant, personal assistant, housekeeper, nanny. There was a guy who took care, a fish guy who took care of the fish tank, security, female security and male security, personal trainer, bus drivers, a driver for some of the vehicles.
Now, for some of those jobs, like runner and assistant, you use the singular. Was there just one runner and one assistant, or was there more than one runner and more than one assistant?
Yeah, there was. There was more than one runner. There would frequently be a couple of assistants, but there could be times that there was a single person who was the assistant.
I'm showing what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 12. Do you recognise Government Exhibit 12?
Yes.
Who is that?
Daryl McDavid.
What did he do for the defendant?
Daryl was Rob's business manager.
I'm showing what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 4. Do you recognise that individual?
Yes.
And who is that?
That's Junebug.
What did Junebug do for the defendant?
He was he's his uncle, and he was an assistant.
And do you know, is Junebug a true name or a nickname?
No, his name is George K.
George Kelly?
Yes, George Kelly.
I'm showing what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 3. Do you recognise who's shown in Government Exhibit 3?
Yes.
Who is that?
June Brown.
What, if anything, did June Brown do for the defendant?
Well, he was part of the management team, and he was an assistant. Over the course of the time in which I worked for Mr. Kelly, he had different jobs.
And by the way, Junebug, over what period of time did he serve as an assistant for the defendant?
I'm not sure exactly when he started, but he was working for Mr. Kelly when I started working directly for him in Base Productions in 2004. I believe he might have left from time to time over the course of the duration, but I would say 2009, 2010 was when he stopped working for him, when I was still working for Base Productions.
I'm showing what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 32. Do you recognise that individual?
Yes.
Who is it?
Donnie Lyle.
Is this the individual you testified earlier served as the musical director?
That's correct.
Did you also sometimes, I think you said this earlier, that you reached out to Donnie Lyle to get instructions from the defendant? Is that correct?
Yes.
Or he reached out to you?
Yes, or he would have called me, or I would call him.
I'm showing the witness what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 9. Do you recognise that?
Uh-oh, yes.
Who is that?
His name is Bubba.
What, if anything, did he do for the defendant?
Play basketball.
I am showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 18.
Let me just ask, Mr. Farinella, do you have any objection to that Government Exhibit 18?
No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Can I have 1 moment?
Sure.
It's my understanding that counsel has no objection to admitting the following exhibits as I would therefore offer them. Government Exhibit 18, 21, 19, 23, 16, 15, 36, 24, 25, 28, 27, 30, 26, and 29.
All right. No objection. Is that right, Mr. Farinella?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, great. Those are all in evidence. Government's Exhibit 15, 16, 18, 19, 21, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 36 were received in evidence.
Thank you. So I'm now showing what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 18. Do you recognize that individual?
I do.
Who is that?
I can't remember his name.
What, if anything, did he do for the defendant?
Security, if I remember the correct person, but I can't remember his name right now.
Government Exhibit 21 in evidence. Do you recognize that individual?
I do.
Who is it?
His name was Baldy.
What, if anything, did he do for the defendant?
He was a friend of the defendant.
Government Exhibit 19. Do you recognize that individual?
Yes.
Who is it?
His name is Hardy.
What, if anything, did he do for the defendant?
He was Rob's security.
And Government Exhibit 22. Do you recognize that individual?
I do.
And who is it?
Her name is Candy.
Is that her true name or a nickname?
I believe that was her true name.
And what, if anything, did Candy do for the defendant?
She was security.
And when you identified the individuals who served as security, what do you mean by that? What did they do for the defendant?
Well, they would either be the person that was sitting at the gate in the call box at the house monitoring the gate, or when we traveled, would be a part of the entourage and security, performing the role of security in public.
I am showing Government Exhibit 8. Do you recognize that individual?
I do.
Who is it?
His name is Blackie.
What did he, if anything, did he do for the defendant?
Well, he was related to Mr. Kelly. I don't know exactly, other than just being around in that capacity, what his role was. He was just related to Mr. Kelly.
How regularly was he around?
Infrequently, but around, like perhaps when we were traveling.
Traveling on tour?
Or video performances. But he was at the studio in Chicago as well.
Which studio, by the way?
Chicago Tracks and Chocolate Factory.
Government Exhibit 23. Do you recognize that individual?
I do.
Who is it?
Big John.
What did Big John do for the defendant?
He was security.
Over what time period?
When I started at Chicago Tracks in 1998 until I'd say sometime in 2000, maybe 7.
And when you started at Chicago Tracks in 1998, was Big John performing security for the defendant?
To my recollection, yes.
Government Exhibit 16. Do you recognize that individual?
I do.
Who is it?
Joe Allen.
What did Joe Allen do for the defendant, if anything?
He was a bus driver.
Government Exhibit 15. Do you recognize that individual?
I do.
Who is it?
Terry Allen.
What, if anything, did Terry Allen do for the defendant?
He was a bus driver.
And when the defendant's bus drivers were, or when you were not on tour, what, if anything, did the defendant's bus drivers do?
They would continue to drive the bus. The bus was frequently with us, regularly with us, even when we were at the house in Olympia Fields, or just, or sometimes we do trips to the gym or movies, and the bus driver would always be with us. So they would change in shifts where one bus driver would be driving at one point and another one would come in. There was always a bus driver around.
Government Exhibit 36. Do you recognize that individual?
I do.
Who is it?
Diana Copeland.
What, if anything, did Diana Copeland do for the defendant?
She was an assistant.
Government Exhibit 49. Who is that?
That's Ian Marinus.
What, if anything, did he do for the defendant?
Well, he was his audio engineer.
Over what time period?
The entire time I worked at Chicago Tracks to the time I left Bass Productions.
So 1997 to 2011?
1998 to 2011.
Government Exhibit 50.
Yes.
Who is that?
Abel Garibaldi.
What did he do for the defendant?
He was also an audio engineer.
Over what time period?
I don't know when he started, but off and on, sometime in the 90s or early 2000s, all the way to when I left in 2001.
2011. Government Exhibit 24. Do you
Yes, when
recognize
I
that
left.
individual?
Yes, ma'am. And when I left in 2011, sorry about that. But yes, I think so.
Who is it?
I think that's Jeff, but I can't remember Jeff's last name.
Okay. Government Exhibit 25. What do
Yes.
you think that individual did for the defendant?
No, he was an assistant engineer and an engineer.
Government Exhibit 25.
Yes.
Who is that?
Ryan Salisbury, I think was his last name.
What, if anything, did he do for the defendant?
He was a runner.
Over what time period?
2004 to maybe 2008, maybe less. Maybe it's 2007. I'm not sure.
Government Exhibit 28. Do you recognize that individual?
I don't.
Government Exhibit 27.
Yes.
Who is that?
Nate Wheeler.
What, if anything, did he do for the defendant?
He was an assistant engineer.
Over what time period?
2001, perhaps, till maybe 2005, 2006.
Now, earlier you testified that Ian Marinus and Abdul Garibaldi worked through the time that you were at Olympia Fields.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know whether they continued to work for the defendant?
After I left,
Yes.
I believe they did.
Okay. So you're not saying that they left in 2011, just that you left in 2011.
That's correct. I left in 2011.
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Government Exhibit 34.
Yes.
Who is that?
Anthony.
What, if anything, did Anthony do for the defendant?
He was a runner.
Over what time period?
I don't know when he started. Maybe 2005 or 2006 to maybe around 2009.
And lastly, Government Exhibit 26. Do you recognize that individual?
I'm sorry. I misread. I misnamed somebody earlier on. This is Jeff, and Jeff's last name is Meeks.
And what did Jeff Meeks do for the defendant?
He was an audio engineer.
All right. So when you identified Government Exhibit 24, is that the individual you previously identified as Jeff?
That's correct. I know who that is.
Who is that?
That's Blake.
Do you know Blake's last name?
Yeah, I think it's either Kafin or Coffin, Shoffin.
What did Blake do for the defendant?
Well, he was an assistant engineer and an engineer and a technician.
Over what time period?
98 when I started until before we left, before Chicago Tracks became the chocolate factory. So probably about 2003.
And do you recall the hairstyle that he had when he was working at Chicago Tracks, the chocolate factory?
Blake's hairstyle?
Yes.
No, I don't.
Do you remember if it was short or long?
Objection. He said he doesn't know.
I don't recall.
Okay.
Overruled.
I am showing Government Exhibit 523A. With the consent of the defendant, the government offers 523A through C.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, it's in evidence.
I'm showing what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 523A. Do you recognize that?
I believe that's the basketball gym in Markham.
And 523B?
That's the interior of the gym in Markham.
And finally, 523C.
The opposite view of the same gym.
And where is Markham?
It's a suburb of Chicago, southwest side of Chicago.
And what, if anything, did you do with the defendant at that gym in Markham that is shown in Government Exhibit 523A through C?
Well, he frequently played basketball there in the evenings. So we would travel to and from either the studio or from wherever to go there to play basketball.
What were your responsibilities with respect to basketball?
Sometimes it was my job to reach out to all the people that were playing to make sure they were going to be there. I would also coordinate the timing to make sure everybody knew where to go. I would have also maybe driven people to and from the gym or escorted guests into the gym and out.
How far is the basketball gym in Markham to the defendant's residence in Olympia Fields?
About 15 minutes.
By car?
By car.
And who played basketball with the defendant?
There was a lot of people that played basketball, and it rotated over many years.
How would a team be set each night or each time you played, the defendant played basketball?
I think as long as we had 3 people on each side, they would play some sort of pickup game, but generally try to do 5-on-5.
And who would find the players for the basketball game?
Well, either I had a list of people to reach out to, or one of the guys that he played basketball with would call some people. For the better part of the time, which I worked for Rob, Junebug was also responsible for coordinating the basketball. Junebug.
How regularly did you coordinate basketball games for the defendant?
I didn't coordinate them all the time. When I was responsible for coordinating, it would be nightly.
Are you familiar with the Avenues Mall?
Yes.
Where is the Avenues Mall located?
In Jacksonville.
Florida?
Yes, Jacksonville, Florida.
What, if anything, do you recall happening at the Avenues Mall involving the defendant and a female guest?
The Avenues Mall is the mall in Jacksonville we went to every time we were in town. There was a store there called Belk, I think, that we parked on that side where Belk was, and there would be guests, guests would come in and out. We could pull up there so that the guests could go in there and go shopping, or else somebody could arrive to the mall to be escorted onto the bus or into the mall.
Do you have a specific memory of an incident that happened at the Avenues Mall involving a specific female guest?
There was a guest that lived in Jacksonville that was a frequent visitor or traveler that came to shows of stuff.
What was her name?
That was Alexia or Alexis.
When you said that she was a frequent traveler, what do you mean by that?
Meaning that she would be in Jacksonville. She'd always be at the Jacksonville show, or else I may have booked a flight for her to another venue, or else she came to Chicago. She had been a guest in Chicago.
Now, was one of your responsibilities during that time that you worked for the defendant to arrange travel for the defendant's female guests?
Yes.
How would you do that?
At one point, we had a travel management company that we would book all flights through. When we stopped booking travel through them, I would book the flights on Orbit.
What was the name of the travel company that you used?
Preferred Travel.
And over what time period did you arrange travel for of the defendant's female guests?
I don't know. I don't know when it started for sure, but I probably arranged some travel while we were still at the chocolate factory in Chicago. So probably around 2003, 2004.
And did you continue to arrange travel?
Yes, off and on until 2011.
When you stopped working for the defendant?
That's correct.
What, if anything, would you request? How would it come to be that you were arranging travel for a particular female guest?
Well, by direction of Mr. Kelly or someone that I knew that the directions came directly from him through. So directly or indirectly from Mr. Kelly.
What, if anything, did the defendant say that would cause you to arrange travel?
He would tell me to book travel for a certain person, or else I would ask. I'd say so and so called to ask for flights. I would say so and so called to ask for flights, and he would say book travel for them.
So, did you receive communications from some of the defendant's female guests looking for you to arrange travel for them?
There was times in which I was asked. Primarily, the direction came for Rob to book travel for somebody.
What, if any, information did the defendant provide when he wanted you to book travel for him?
He would give either their number to contact them or tell them that, to expect a phone call.
And when you arranged travel for a female guest, what, if any, information would you get from that guest?
Well, in order to book travel, I would need their name as it appears on their ID and date of birth.
Do you recall an occasion where the defendant had appendicitis?
I do.
In what city were you when that happened?
Miami.
Do you recall why you were in Miami?
There was, I think it was a Super Bowl.
Do you remember what Super Bowl it was?
I do. It was the Bears and the Colts. So it was 2000 and 2005.
All right. Was it the Super Bowl when the Colts played the Bears?
That's correct.
Fair to say, you look unsure, but you tell me, are you sure of the date that the Super Bowl occurred?
I'm unsure of the date, but sure of the teams that participated.
And where was the Super Bowl held?
It was in
In Miami.
2007.
And
Okay.
when the defendant had appendicitis, where, if anywhere, did he go?
There was a hospital in Miami that we went to. I don't remember the name of the hospital.
All right. But it was in Miami. He didn't return to Chicago. Is that correct?
Correct. The hospital was in Miami.
Did you travel outside of the United States with the defendant?
I did.
Where did you travel to?
Wow. Well, we went to South Africa and Nigeria. We went to Angola, Ethiopia, Uganda. We did a European tour where we went to Switzerland, Amsterdam, France, Germany, and the UK. And the last trip I took was to Gabon.
You testified that you traveled to South Africa. Do you recall when you traveled to South Africa with the defendant?
We went twice. The first time in 2009, I believe, June or July, and then for the World Cup opening ceremonies in 2010.
Do you recall how long the trip to South Africa in 2009 was?
I'm not sure, but I believe it was about 2 weeks.
Do you recall whether the defendant had a personal lawyer when you were working for him?
Yes,
What was his name?
Eddie Jensen.
Have you been to his office?
Yes,
Where was his office located?
in Chicago, in downtown Chicago.
Who, if anyone, have you brought to the defendant's personal lawyer's office in downtown Chicago?
Well, I brought Rob there. I brought Daryl McDavid there. I believe I even brought June Brown there. We made some frequent trips there. I'm not entirely sure everybody I would have brought there, though.
Fair to say there may be others that you brought to that office.
Yes.
During the time period that you worked for the defendant, did you always receive the paycheck that you believed you were owed?
No.
What happened?
Sometimes I would be fined, so money would be taken off my check for errors or mistakes that I made.
Who did you understand what determined if you were fined on a particular occasion?
Could you repeat the question?
Who did you understand decided if you were going to be fined on a particular occasion?
Rob?
On how many occasions were you fined?
I'm not sure, but it was quite a few, especially towards the end of my tenure.
When you say you were fined, what do you mean?
So maybe just $100 or $200 for some mistakes towards the end of my, and in fact, the reason I ultimately left, I received a paycheck that tax had been taken out, but the dollar amount on the check was $0.
Do you recall some of the reasons? Did you learn the reasons why you'd been fined? Were you told those?
Yes.
Do you recall some of the reasons that you were told that you had been fined?
For not getting his lunch. I was fined for sleeping through a call. He tried to reach out to me several times and I didn't answer. I was fined for buying a sweatband for a guest.
What happened with the sweatband?
I was escorting a guest to the bathroom and the guest asked to get a wristband, a sweatband from the shop. And it was right outside the merch shop. So I purchased the sweatband. I believe it was $5 or $10. Didn't even think anything about it. And then I got fined for that because I didn't ask if it was okay to purchase the wristband.
What type of guest was it? Who you purchased a $5 to $10 sweatband for?
It was a personal guest.
Female?
Female, yes.
Were there other reasons that you were told you'd been fined?
Yes. I was fined for not getting the correct tour guide in Disney. That was the last fine that I received. We were all fined because someone ate his donuts once. We all had to purchase donuts. It's their menial. It's other menial or menial other things. And it could be mistakes like not getting us to a video shoot on time or not having the correct destination escorts too. So it was also it will also be not just based on job performance stuff as well, but fines.
All right. But it sounds, are you drawing a distinction where there were some fines when it was related to your job performance for the defendant and sometimes where it seemed more menial than that?
That's correct.
Do you recall do you recall being fined for purported infractions related to the defendant's female guests, aside from the ones that were just described involving the sweatband?
I can't recall a specific instance, but I'm sure I was.
When did you stop working for the defendant?
October 2011.
And why did you stop working for the defendant?
Well, we had a very busy day of driving. We went to two after parties on two different sides of Florida in the same night. And on the way back to the hotel after both club appearances I had, I insisted that I needed to ride in the car and somebody else was going to have to drive because I was going to fall asleep. And I was woken up on the side of the road as the person that was driving, they fell asleep and I almost drove off the road. So we got back to the hotel to put everybody into the hotel room, and my wife called me before I got to sleep, excuse me, and said we received a paycheck and it was for $0. And my that I had been fined for my whole week's paycheck, but Uncle Sam received their money. I realized at that moment that my wife wasn't happy. I wasn't happy, and Rob wasn't happy. So therefore, there was no point for me to continue working for him anymore.
You said that you had been fined, and I think you testified earlier that, well, did you learn why you had been fined on that final paycheck?
Yes, I was instructed to get Walt Disney set up for him with a hotel room and a tour guide and to have the whole experience set up. It was
When you said that you were instructed to have the whole experience set up for him, who is the him in that sentence?
Rob asked me to set up the tour guide and the hotel. It was very last minute. I chose to get the hotel room set up first. Hotel room and room set up for everybody. And once that was confirmed and I knew I could actually get the hotel rooms, I was paying in cash. And I wasn't sure if that would be allowed or not, but it was. I was able to get the room secured. I called up to ask for a tour guide to escort us around for the park, and there was nobody that was available. And so they had to ask for someone to volunteer to either leave their current assignment or come in on off hours to actually tour or, kind of to escort us or to escort him.
Let me stop you for a moment. What, if any, understanding did you have regarding the qualifications for a tour guide?
It needed to be a woman.
Why is that?
Well, his request was that it always be a female tour guide.
Who is the his in that sentence?
Rob.
Who did you understand was going to be accompanying the defendant on this tour at Disney?
It would have been Rob, some security, myself. There could have been other members of the traveling party and female guests.
Were you able to find a female to serve as a tour guide for the defendant?
In this instance, I was not.
What did you do?
Well, he was on his way to Disney, so I took the first person I could get. It was a gentleman who was there to greet us as the bus pulled up. I did not notify Mr. Kelly that this person was, that there was going to be a guy, and we pulled up. He realized it was a gentleman, and we canceled the VIP experience.
So was there a tour that day? Did the defendant go on a tour that day?
No, we did not.
And what was the consequence for having secured a male tour guide instead of female tour guide?
Well, for not having the correct tour guide and not communicating it was a week's pay.
How much was a week's pay at that time?
I believe it was $1,500.
One moment. Nothing further.
I know it's a little early for our morning break, but I think it makes sense to take a break now. So we'll be in recess for about 10 minutes. Please don't talk about the case at all, but enjoy your break. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Miss Sylvia, I have to go.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much, and I'll be back a little bit later on.
Okay.
All right.
Sylvia, I think I'm going to have to go too.
Okay. So you guys want to stop here and we just end it right here?
We're at the 2-hour mark. We should.
Yeah, we had 2 hours. 2 hour exact.
Daddy Lodo, is that all right as well? You haven't come
I
on yet.
appreciate it.
All right, guys, we're gonna end it here.
Okay.
We're gonna end it here and we'll continue. What page are we on?
1542.
1542 is the page we're on, and
Line 9.
line number 9. Okay. Guys, we're gonna end it right here. We'll be back with Dottie's update. We'll be back with Dottie's update. But thank you everyone who participated in the reading today.
Thank you so much.
No problem. I really
Thank you,
enjoyed it.
everyone.
And thanks
you.
for asking.
Thank you. You're
Thank you
welcome.
guys, and please come back and help me out again.
We will.
I will.
Thank you.
I'm going to my mom for a little while, so I got to drive down there, so I
Aw.
will.
All right, guys. I'll
Yeah,
see you
thanks.
later.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
All righty. All right, everybody. That is the end of this in reenactment. Now we're gonna go and have Dottie to come on. We'll be back. I'm gonna rename this, and I guess in about an hour I'll be back. Okay. Got to get me some tender victuals, some food. All right, guys. Thank you. Love you guys. Bye.